Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing, where today, much like yesterday, we're going to read some short stories from the Brothers Grimm. So, we're just going to get going, and we're going to start with... let's go with... Going Out A-Travelling, page 649. So, going out a-travelling. Once upon a time there was a poor woman who had a son so very fond of travelling that his mother used to say to him, "Where can you ride when you have no money to take with you?" "I can help myself well," said the son, "and all day long I will say, 'Not much, not much, not much.'" So he travelled a whole day and kept saying, "Not much, not much, not much." By and by he came to a fisherman, to whom he said, "God help you, not much." "How say you, fellow?" cried the fisherman. "Not much." When he drew out the net, there were very few fish, and, taking up a stick, he beat the youth, saying, "Have you never seen me thrash?" "What shall I say then?" asked the youth. "A good catch, a good catch, a good catch." Thereupon the youth walked a whole day long, crying, "A good catch," till he came to a gallows, where they were about to hang up a poor criminal. "Good morning," said the youth. "A good catch, a good catch." "What do you say, fellow?" said the criminal. "Shall there not be a bad man in the world? Is one not enough?" So saying, he went up the ladder. "What shall I say then?" asked the youth. "You should say, 'God comfort a poor soul.'" The next day, accordingly, the youth walked all day long, repeating, "God comfort a poor soul." Presently he came to a grave, whereby stood a knacker about to kill an old horse. "Good morning. God comfort the poor soul," said the youth. "What do you say, you silly fellow?" said the knacker, giving the youth a blow on the ear, so that he could scarce see out of his eyes. "What shall I say, then?" "You should say, 'There lies a carcass in its grave.'" So all the next day the youth went on, saying, "There lies a carcass in its grave." Presently he met a wagon full of people. "Good morning. There lies a carcass in its grave," said the youth. As he spoke, the wagon fell into the grave, and the driver, jumping off, gave the youth a cut with his whip, and drove him home to his mother. And all his life long afterwards he never went out a-travelling. What an unusual story. So, let's go back to the contents and see what else we can read. Let's go with another shortish one. The Giant and the Tailor, page 770. The Giant and the Tailor. A certain tailor, who was a large boaster, but very small performer, took it once into his head to go and look about him in the world. As soon as he could, he left his workshop and travelled away over hills and valleys, now on this and now on that, but still onwards. After he had gone some way, he perceived in the distance a steep mountain, and behind it a lofty tower, which rose from the midst of a wild, dense forest. "Good gracious," cried the tailor, "what is this?" And driven by his curiosity, he went rapidly towards the place. But he opened his mouth and eyes wide enough when he got nearer, for the tower had legs, and sprang in a trice over the steep hill, and stood up a mighty giant before the tailor. "What are you about here, you puny fly-legs?" asked the giant, in a voice which rumbled on all sides like thunder. I am trying to earn a piece of bread in this forest, whispered the tailor. Well, then, it is time you entered my service, said the giant fiercely. If it must be so, why not, said the tailor humbly. But what will you give me? What wage shall you have, repeated the giant contemptuously. Listen, and I will tell you. Every year 365 days, and one besides, if it be a leap year. Is that right? Quite, said the tailor, but thought to himself, one must cut according to his cloth. I will seek to make myself free very soon. Go, little rascal, and fetch me a glass of water, cried the giant. Why not the whole well, and its spring too, said the tailor, but he fetched as he was bid. What, the well and its spring too, bellowed the giant, who was rather cowardly and weak, and so began to be afraid, thinking to himself, this fellow can do more than roast apples. He has a heap of courage. I must take care, or he will be too much of a servant for me. So when the tailor returned with the water, the giant sent him to fetch a couple of bundles of faggots from the forest and bring them home. In this context, faggots is an old word for a bundle of sticks. Why not the whole forest at one stroke? Every tree, young and old, knotty and smooth, asked the tailor, and went away. What, the whole forest? And the well too, and its spring, murmured the frightened giant in his beard, and he began to be still more afraid, and believed that the tailor was too great a man for him, and not fit for his servant. However, when the tailor returned with his load of faggots, the giant told him to shoot 2 or 3 wild boars for their supper. Why not rather 1,000 at one shot, and the rest afterwards, cried the boaster. What? Gasped the cowardly giant, terribly frightened. Oh, well, that is enough for today. You may go to sleep now. The poor giant, however, was so very much afraid of the little tailor that he could not close his eyes all the night, but tossed about thinking how to get rid of his servant, whom he regarded as an enchanter conspiring against his life. With time comes counsel. The following morning the giant and the dwarf went together to a marsh, where a great many willow trees were growing. When they got there, the giant said, Sit yourself on one of these willow rods. Tailor, on my life I only wish to see if you are in a condition to bend it down. The boasting tailor climbed the tree and perched himself on a bough, and then, holding his breath, he made himself heavy enough thereby to hand the tree down. Soon, however, he had to take breath again, and immediately, having been unfortunate enough to come without his goose in his pocket, the bough flew up, and to the great joy of the giant carried with it the tailor so high into the air that he went out of sight, and whether he has since fallen down again, or is yet flying about in the air, I am unable to tell you satisfactorily. That was a very unusual story. Very, very unusual indeed. But still, that'll do for the reading for today. We are, as you see, towards the end, with very, very little time left. So we will not have time to do more reading, but I would just like to say today is day 999. Tomorrow is the last day. It feels very surreal, to be quite honest, that we've come so far, for so long as well. So, it's going to be very strange that tomorrow is the last one. Very, very strange. But it will be it will be a slightly longer episode, I believe. So please do be sure to come and join for that. But anyway, this is very strange to say this, but where I would normally say my goodbyes for the day, I will say thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you very much for joining me this whole set of this whole set of videos. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night, no matter what time of day, month or year it is when you see this, if you see this. I hope you have a wonderful one of it. And for the last time, we will be back again tomorrow for more of The Longing. Goodbye.